This episode is brought to you by Muntins Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Muntins has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Muntins offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Muntins malt. You know, we've known the Muntins crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Muntins malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Muntins, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by Hopsterette.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Pewterball family farm, Hopsterette.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is Hopsterette.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to Hopsterette.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's Hopsterette.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Does carbonation affect gravity readings? Which grains to stock in bulk? And tips for using the quick carb lid. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 371. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you, my friend, have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com, click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or even better, call it in to 325-305-6107. Leave us a voicemail question. You could do a feedback, but I need the questions now. I've mentioned that on other episodes. Again, to that hotline, and when I play it on a future episode, you get yourself a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Stubing, joined as always by the Director of Operations at cmbecker.com over there, Mr. James Carlson, as well as the President and Chief Keg Washer of kegconnection.com right there, Mr. Todd Burns. Gentlemen, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, hello. I love that episode so much. You know, I actually recently, let me start fading the music out. Netflix went up, I think, again, or they announced about to go up, or maybe they just did. I forget what it was. All the services. First off, I didn't think I subscribed to as many services until talking to my wife, and I was like, because I was trying to watch Champions League soccer not that long ago, and I was like, oh, I might do a trial of Paramount. That's what it was on. And she goes, oh, we already have that. I was like, what? Yeah, we've had that for like 2 years. Like, what? It turns out we have everything. We all have all the ones. But anyways, where I'm going with it is Netflix went up, and it's like, I don't know, for what our plan, $26 or something.
Oh, crap.
It's because
I canceled mine.
Well,
I had it 20 years and canceled it.
I know, dude. I'm with you. I've had it since day. I have the original Roku that was $100 so that I didn't have to use my laptop to stream from their puny database. You know, they didn't have much to offer. There was still brick and mortar Blockbusters at the time. And, but I told her, I said, I'll cancel it. She goes, but you watch Seinfeld? I go, I have the DVDs. What do I
Oh God! I can't wait till this comes around to beer.
You be quiet. You listen here, buddy. This is the Joshua Stubing Happy Hour, the homebrew therapy happy hour.
Starting to turn into the Todd Burns unhappy hour right now. So.
Okay, that was good. But anyway,
that settles that argument.
Ugh. Anyway, yeah, you're right, Mr. Burns. We do have a jam-packed show. We have small talk, but before we get even to that small talk, I want to do some following up. My pop and I, for our Brew Day Live in February, brewed the February recipe kit, which is a Kolsch, and I guess I could segue to that. A delicious Cologne Kolsch, or as we say, who speak English, Cologne Kolsch. You can go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, join a recipe receiving tier, and get this kit shipped out to your home. The last Monday of the month is when they go out. I don't think it's ever taken more than 4 business days to get to most people across the country, but they say it's 4 to 7. So either way, patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, join a recipe receiving tier. You get the kit. It's my favorite kit if you're new to the show. It's if you're not new to the show, you've known that. Spoiler. Kolsch is my favorite. But anyways, my pop and I brewed that on our Brew Day Live in February, and I just kegged it Friday or Saturday, almost a week ago. And guys, it is incredible. It's way better than the Kolsch that we even have on tap now. People who follow us at like Instagram.com/homebrew happy hour have seen my disappointment with our Kolsch right now on tap. Tastes great, but it's not pretty. It's too cloudy. It never cleared up. It's not hazy.
You never did ask me when you got here about this, what I was going to give you to clear that up.
Oh, I didn't. You're right. Well, that's kind of your fault too. You didn't remind yourself to have me ask you to remind you. No, it was my fault. So next time I'm up there, which is this coming week, you can help me. But this one, so that recipe we fermented at temperature. And it went well and all that. But this last batch of James I did under pressure at I don't think it ever got warmer than 7. I think it was like 70 the whole time in here. Dude, it tastes great and it is clear. Like I was so happy with how it turned out. I actually got some stuff in the mail that I was going to do with it, but I wanted to film it. So our buddy Trong over at Homebrewers Lab, I'll put the link in the show notes. I always forget if it's Homebrew Lab or Homebrewers Lab. We've sold the Picnic Tap 2.0 for a while. I don't think we have the Float It on our site yet, but it's his floating dip tube. He sent me a floating dip tube. Well, I bought one and then we connected about getting him on the show, and he was like, oh, I'm going to send you this. And I was like, I already bought one. He goes, oh, well, I'll just send you one too. So I have 2 now, floating dip tubes of his that have like I couldn't tell you the micron or whatever. This isn't the video promoting that product or showcasing it or whatever. So I don't have to know all the details yet, but I will. So I considered using it on the Kolsch, and I was like, you know what? The Kolsch is already clear. I don't need to do that. I'll use it on a different style going forward and document that and all that. But he's going to be on the show in March. My point being, I'm just happy. I think the pressure fermentation is what I feel most comfortable doing. It's been producing the most solid results for me. And I know some people are like, yeah, but with certain styles like Kolsch, don't you want the yeast to provide a little bit of stuff like that you're not trying to suppress? And I'm telling y'all, friends, if you do it, I did it at, like I said, 70 degrees, 10 PSI. I let it naturally build to 10 PSI, then put the spunning valve to make sure it never got above that, and it stayed there. And when it came time, we hit our numbers great. It finished at 10.9, so it's a little on the drier side, which is wonderful. It still has that little bit of ester that a Kolsch has, like the little, the hint of fruit. And like I said, and it's clear. That's all I can ask for. So I think going forward, I'll just do that. And it also makes my electric bill a lot better because this 140 square foot office I work in at home, it's not expensive to keep it at 64, but it's not cheap either, especially when it comes summertime. It's not necessarily economical for me to be fermenting in this, giant closet. But either way, I had that beer. Now, Todd had brewed you've been brewing a couple things lately. You kegged the California Common, 2 weeks ago? And then you brewed a German Pils around that same time that you kegged the California Common?
Well, yeah. So I brewed the London Porter
Right. Which was phenomenal.
I think the California Common was first, and then the London Porter, and then the German Pils, which I tried the German Pils yesterday. It's really, really doing well. To me, it doesn't quite have enough hop bite, but I think James will probably taste it and say, "Oh yeah, that's plenty of hop bite." So it's all a matter of what you like,
Yeah.
So I think, but it hasn't completely cleared up yet. But I wasn't even thinking about taking it off yet. I basically let it sit. I let it fermented for quite a while over a course of a couple of weeks, because of the fact that one of the things that they mentioned when I read an article on this was to not worry about doing a diacetyl rest, but instead to actually leave it at that fermentation temperature for much longer, and that would get rid of the diacetyl. So I was real nervous about trying that. And when we had visitors, what was it, 2 weeks ago? Lorena came down.
10 days ago. Yeah.
And she tried it then, and she said, "There's no diacetyl in this." So she said, "It's great." So anyway, it seemed to work well. And now what I'm going to do, and I didn't want to cold crash it until then. So then I cold crashed it maybe about 4 days ago. And I'm going to probably let it sit for about a week. I'm going to put it in kegs, let it sit a couple more weeks in kegs, and then start drawing off of them to get the stuff out of the bottom. And I think it'll be crystal clear.
Yeah, that sounds like a great timeline. I was telling a buddy of ours through Chub Club, because they're, my pop and I still have Kolsch on tap. And I was like, no, the timing's perfect because the Kolsch it's a hybrid, right? Cold and time benefit it. So I was like, we will probably take another month to go through our current keg, and then the next keg of this fresh batch will be perfect by then, because it'll be in cold conditioning for right at like 4.5, 5 weeks. It'll be great. That's like ideal if you can be patient. Like, you can turn these styles around quick, but the ales, at least, I'm talking about. But even the Pilsner. So you did this, though, traditional pills. You did not do pressure. You did it in the CF15.
No, totally traditional pills. Yeah.
And what do you remember? What was your hop selection? I know the grain selection. You're using lager malt.
I'd have to pull up the recipe. I don't remember.
You didn't? Okay.
One that we.
It wasn't.
I think you're aware of my memory.
That's true. I exploit it all the time. I'm like, no, you said I could take off today. You said I could.
Yeah, that's true. You do exploit me.
You know, I bet you it was middle fruit, because we have a crap ton of it.
I think that's what it was. But
that's what I use. Sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of it. It was thankfully, because again, we're sending out that Kolsch this month for Patreon members, so we better have a lot of it. But I think I also, last time I thought we got you some tradition, or maybe that was what they didn't have. They didn't have tradition, so they doubled up on the middle fruit. That's what it was. Yeah. That's the one thing I've learned. Our sponsors, Muntins Malt, hopsdirect.com, Imperial, they're all incredible. But one thing you have to remember when you're ordering ingredients, whether you're a consumer or like us, this pseudo retail kind of thing, not everything's always available. It's, you know what I mean? And we're like, for hops, it's dependent on the harvest that they're able to get and yield, weather affects all of that, blah, blah, blah.
Weather, wars, everything.
Exactly. That's what I was going to say with the grains. The grains are more affected by the world conflict and all that, and weather. I guess all of them, you know, the yeast is, again, whatever they're able to propagate and this and that. It's, we are still living in the best time ever to be a home brewer. I'll never say we're not, but go ahead.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say that even though it's still the best time, we are still affected by things like, you know, stock and inventory. So where I was going with it is I'm just extremely grateful that our sponsors have been so consistent with us, and then willing to give us substitutes when they can't give us our first choice. It's like, oh, you wanted, you know, tradition. Well, that's a Hallertau. So a middle fruit, you know, would be a great substitute. Okay. Thank you. That's fantastic. Thank you so much. In the past, not for kits, but for myself, when we were in the ingredients business, I would substitute middle fruit for Mount Hood and had great results with that too. But our, like I said, Hops Direct. It's nice having experts as our sponsors because I can tell them, ooh, this recipe really called for Willamette. What do you think? And they'd say, well, with it X, Y, or Z. And I don't have to question it, as opposed to me being like, oh, they smell the same. Let's just use that one. It's not the best thing. But what were you going to say, Mr. Burns, before I rudely tried to finish my thought?
Hallertau middle brew. So
okay, that is what you use.
I knew it was Hallertau. I always get confused because there's so many different Hallertaus.
Yes,
but that is what I use. So, and I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but it was the very first time I've ever done a first wort. So that was interesting to try.
Explain.
First wort is basically when you put the hops in to the boil kettle as you're transferring over.
As opposed, go ahead, James.
Oh, that just means as you're drawing your wort into the boil kettle, you add the hops.
Yeah.
Wait, so and you're still then stick to a schedule of 60, 30, whatever, or that is that replaces the schedule?
On this particular one, it was first wort was 70 minutes, and I added hops at 70 minutes, which doesn't sound like the same thing, but because it sounds like this. I added them at the same time, but I didn't, because you don't really count it until you start boiling.
No, right? Yeah, yeah. You're saying the first addition went in before boil as it was coming up to temp.
Yeah. Exactly.
And then
right as I was transferring over.
That's what I mean. Yeah, as you're transferring over, and then when you hit boil, you followed a hop schedule.
Yep.
And you did a 70-minute boil.
Yeah, and they say to do about a third first wort and then the rest boil. So that's what I did. I think I did 2 ounces first wort and 3.5 ounces, for the boil.
Yeah, and this was a 17-gallon yield, or 17 and a half.
17.5. I always brew 17.5.
You've told me that, and I always forget. It's like you forget that our Germany meetings are Thursdays. I forget that it's 17 and a half.
Oh, damn it. I missed the Germany meeting this morning.
No. Oh, did you see me I tried to get you in the group chat. Oh, egg on my face. If I would, our poor German counterpart was like, but I asked for Wednesday. Why are you, Josh, are you yelling at me about Thursday? Anyway, what other small talk? Oh, I did want to say, I don't have a slide for it. A couple things. Salesman hat. Gotcha if you stuck around this long. CatConnection.com right now has 15% off site-wide. No promo code required. Go enjoy the savings right now. We don't have an end date. It's not going to last beyond the end of the month. So that's what I'll just say right now. It's from now through the end of February. Enjoy 15% off. Go to CatConnection.com. Again, no promo code is required. And the reason I also bring it up, we have had an abundance of people reach out to me for the Topo Clone, the mineral water recipe. They've been buying it up. They've been enjoying it, but they've also wanted to know where they can get the sheet, because what we're shipping out to them is just the baggie that looks like drugs and a QR code for the video. In that description of the video, friends, you can get, this is just a clipping of it. You can get, it's no secret what the recipe is. This is not proprietary. We just made it convenient for you by bagging the chemicals, because I promise you, when you source them all the minerals, and weigh it and do it all yourself, you'll be like, this is not enjoyable. So I'll have someone else do it for me and sell it to me for $5. But you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com. On the bottom right of the homepage is a recipe section. You can print off a whole sheet that gives you the breakdown of parts per, like how much you'd need. If you want to scale the recipe, you can do it using that. And then it also has this part for the 5-gallon batch, which is what we are shipping out. But all of this is available at homebrewhappyhour.com. Or if you do end up getting the kit, go to our youtube.com/homebrewhappyhour page. Todd has a video that says how to make Topo Chico at home. And the instructions are in there as well. But yeah, I've had, not lying, 35 people in the last 7 days be like, hey, you've talked about a recipe. Where is it? All of the recipes we've ever published are at homebrewhappyhour.com. And again, the kit, if you want to make 5 gallons of your own and you don't want to weigh out minerals or buy minerals and weigh them out and all that rigmarole, go to catconnection.com. It's 15% off right now of its sale price. So I think it is actually darn near a flat $5. And if you buy 4 packs or more, it takes $1 off each pack. all the details are there at ketconnection.com. But yeah, turning my hat back around, I'm not salesman anymore. The only other small...
that sounded like, that was good, dude. That sounded like an infomercial. I mean,
Yeah.
wow. I want to go. I mean, I want to go out there and steal a package right now.
I want to go to ketconnection.com and use promo now. New to Ket Connection. Anyways, but so Kolsch, I already said that. Kolsch Cup, if you want to submit and prove that you brew the best Kolsch in the country, go to kolschcup.com, register. We right now have 12 spots available of the 40 that we've opened up. So if you want to be one of the last 12, go to kolschcup.com, register. All the details for the event are there. It's April 11th through the 13th, but your beer is due to us by whatever a week before April 11th is. And like I said, all the details are there. It's $40, or if you're a member of any tier of our Chub Club, besides the free tier, if you're a member of the $5 and up at patreon.com/homebrew happy hour, it's half price. So it's only $20. And the reason we even charge is because we're getting shirts, we're getting a huge obnoxious trophy for the Grand Champ, and then shipping. Shipping's actually really what cost all this money, James. I don't, you know that because you do the shipping frequently. But just to ship a shirt to people, not even the Grand Champion trophy, a shirt out there to most people, it's like $7, and then the shirt itself is like $10. So I pocket the other $3 that we make from your $20 entry if you're in the Chub Club.
I'm laughing because I have to tell you, Josh kind of got excited about a month ago, and he's like, "Wow, the Homebrew Happy Hour account, it's really we're actually got some money in there." You know, usually we're always scraping, and he's like, "We really got some money in there," and he's so excited. And then I started looking into it, and I'm like, "You haven't reimbursed Keg Connection for shipping in like 6 months."
Yeah, about that.
So all the money's gone.
All the money's gone. Poof. It's like that South Park meme, and it's gone. Yeah. It turns out, James, so this is how one day, this is getting me ready for the deposition with the IRS I will have one day when they're like, "So you thought you had money, but it turns out you didn't do your taxes right for 40 years. It was, yeah, when Todd told me, he goes, "Bro, you have our dude." He doesn't say bro. What are we? Gen X or Gen Z? Y'all are Gen X. We're not Gen Z. I'm a millennial. But either way, he was like, "I don't think you've paid shipping for a while." I go, "Oh, okay. I have the last couple months." He goes, "No, it's been like 5 or 6." And so I had to go back like, oh my God. And it's a lot of money.
He was wallowing in the money, ordering stuff.
I really was.
Getting new equipment.
I did.
Yeah.
Hey, I did.
Anytime we couldn't come up with money, he's just let Homebrew Happy Hour handle that.
Turns out.
That's like when I look at my checkbook and I go, checking account online, like, whoa, I got more money. And you drill down, oh, they didn't take the house payment out
see,
yet.
It hadn't been out. Oh,
like,
yeah.
Damn it.
Oh, yeah. Guilty. Anyways, last call again. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour to learn all of this stuff about that. kolschcup.com, blah, 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 blah. We do have a jam-packed show. So before we get to the questions,
It's time for listener feedback.
before we get to the questions, we've got voicemail listener feedback. And this week, it's a voicemail from our buddy Steven, who has some info on milling for all-in-one electric systems, plus how he deals with the Band-Aid off flavor issues.
Hi, Josh and the gang at Homebrew Happy Hour. Really enjoy listening to the podcast. Just catching up with the January 4th episode on milling grains for all-in-one electric systems and Band-Aid, preventing Band-Aid tastes in beer. And if I didn't say, my name is Steven from Philadelphia. So the first feedback I want to give is on milling grains for all-in-one electric systems. I have a Anvil Foundry with a recirculation pump, and I use the brew in the bag that they sell on the at the Anvil site that fits in the Anvil Foundry basket. So I use the basket and the bag, and I use a recirculation pump. And I find I get great efficiency, particularly when I double crush the grain. And all I do is lift out the basket and let it drain. And then I push down on the grains a little bit with a plastic container or something nearby, just to squeeze out any last little bit. because you don't want to waste it, of course. And I find I get great efficiency from double crushing the grains, and the cleanup is really easy. So I highly recommend, if you have a all-in-one system, to get a bag to help you out with that. And the second question that I wanted to respond to was preventing phenolic off flavors. And you suggested using RO water, which is great, or distilled water. But what I often do is the day before, I will put all the water I need in my kettle and just add a Camden tablet. And that usually gets rid of any chlorine or chloramines or any of that kind of things that are added to the water, and I don't have any problems with the Band-Aid off flavors or any other off flavors. So again, 2 suggestions. Really enjoy the show, and hopefully you'll put my responses on air. Take care.
Get that $25 gift card. Thank you, Stephen. And it is similar to feedback we've gotten recently, like last week, our buddy Billy from Boston and before. But I bring it up, one, because last week Billy was like, I do, and he uses a foundry. Billy does. I know this because I follow him. I think it's Dirty Bucket Brewing on Instagram, but Anvil has featured him plenty. But he remember last week was like, I don't think that double milling is worth it at all. The efficiency's not there. You don't save much. It's not worth the time or the effort, blah, blah, blah. And then, but this week we have a guy's like, that's all I do. And I use a bag. You know, I like the different perspectives we have, because we do this too. We find what works for us and we stick with it, because it's like, that is absolutely what works for me. And someone else can go, well, but James, you do this. You're like, no, hey, sorry. I've fit in this. This is what works for me. This is what I'm going to do. But, I have been told before, after I talked about it last week, I'm going to bring up the Grainfather G40 for you to help me look at it, because of whatever's causing an air cavity. You know, you're going to help me take it apart. Someone said, oh, going forward, bro, you got to use a bag. That's the only way. And I was like, you know what? I might try that just to say I did, just to see if that helps, because my pop and I are convinced we might be getting a little bit too fine of stuff going down into there, because it's I'll show you when I bring it up. But either way, okay. I'm convinced you're gonna be able to help me fix it, and it's a non-issue. But with that being said, thank you, Stephen, with the voicemail feedback. A reminder, if you call 325-305-6107 and leave a voicemail feedback and I play it on a future episode, you get yourself a $25 gift card. But even better, same hotline, same premise, but leave a question, because I need voicemail questions right now, to the hotline 325-305-6107. Get yourself a $25 gift card and my sincere gratitude while I'm desperate for voicemail questions right now. Like our first question of the week, it's our buddy Jared from New Jersey.
Hello, Homebrew Happy Hour crew. This is Jared from New Jersey. I have what I think is a simple question for you. Taken inspiration in part from James and have started pressure fermenting my lagers. I ferment in corny kegs with floating dip tube, usually around 12 psi and somewhere between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. During fermentation, normally I take occasional gravity readings with my hydrometer to monitor my fermentation progress and to determine when it's time to cold crash. When pressure fermenting, will the fact that the fermenting beer is carbonated affect my hydrometer readings? And if so, is there a formula I can use to calculate the corrected gravity that takes the carbonation level into account? Or is this maybe a place where the refractometer has an advantage? I've never used one, so I don't really know how refractometers work. But as always, thank you so much for your show, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Have a good one.
It's a great question. First off, it reminds me, I need to restock the stickers of Todd with the refractometer. That was one of our more popular stickers. It's Todd. I called it the B-film pirate photo. You looking through a refractometer. Todd uses a refractometer more than anyone. Well, pardon me, used to. And now he, did you?
Now I do again.
Oh, yeah. We'll get to that after the question. That's hilarious. I'm going to throw it to you first, James, because you're the inspiration for him pressure fermenting lagers, which, by the way, what a great choice he's made. I've never thought of it. So I went to Homebrew Happy Hour before recording and I was like, is it in our calculators? And there's temperature adjustment for calculating gravity, but there's nothing about carbonation, which makes me go, okay, it's a non-issue. But what do you think? Is carbonation going to inherently affect the way that hydrometer takes a reading?
Well, Todd and I, we take the final readings in a little, and you probably do the same thing, in a little sample vial, and you drop it in there and spin it. Well, what happens if you're testing carbonated beer is those bubbles will stick to the side of the hydrometer, and it can actually cause it to not create a accurate reading. So what I do, and I've seen Todd do the same thing, is you just tap the hydrometer or let it set for a little bit. You can swirl it too, but I spin it and tap it until you see the bubbles detach from the body of the hydrometer, and it seems to make a better reading, or you just let it set out.
So, okay. So it's not like, oh man, I'm not going to get an accurate reading because the whole thing's carbonated. It can be something you just sit out, let it settle, and then it'll be accurate.
Or, I mean, when he says sit out, I think he means or let it decarbonate too. Or shake it, put your thumb over it and shake it real hard a few times and get some of that carbonation out. So you're decarbing it. And then just kind of watch for those bubbles, because that's exactly the problem is bubbles collect on it and they lift it up and you don't get an accurate reading.
I'm thinking of a bunch of, what was those things that you used to wear as a kid? Floaties?
Yeah, the floaties.
Floaties all over the hydrometer. It can cause it to read incorrectly.
Yeah, I only wore those as a kid. That's right. Just as a kid. Never have to,
it does keep your hydrometer from drowning. That's good.
Well, I was going to make a joke at my expense. I'm not the greatest swimmer, but my dog actually is the worst swimmer I've ever seen.
The worst swimming lab in the history of Labrador.
How is that possible?
Dude, I want my money back. I paid way too much for that dog. He's a counterfeit.
He just slowly paddles on top of his head until he goes underwater.
Oh, yeah. Well, he pees the way he does, James, because my wife cut his balls off at like 2 days old. The vet was like, yeah, we could do it, but you're supposed to wait. She goes, no, do it. I don't want him humping pillows. Babe, he's not humping pillows. I started humping pillows and she made me get a vasectomy. So it's a recurring pattern of abuse. But anyway, back to the question. So you pressure ferment, James. I pressure ferment. I've honestly never even considered it. I don't think I've had the issue because normally I do put it in the test tube there first and I set it aside because I'm transferring into the keg. And so maybe that's why it's worked for me, because it's been, I don't get to it for a good, 12 minutes or however long it takes to fill 2 kegs. And then I go and look at the gravity or I might look in between at 5 minutes on the low end. But my point being, is that something now you consciously make sure like, okay, there's no bubble sticking to it? Or do you use use a refractometer more than you use a hydrometer?
I don't do it on final because
you can't do
the
it.
alcohol can affect the reading on the refractometer is just light through sugar. And it projects the light that's projected through sugar. It bends it and it projects it onto a scale. But when you have alcohol in it too, it can affect the way that bends the light. So I just use a regular floating hydrometer unless you have an easy dens where it can tell you instantly you don't use a whole lot.
That was nice having an easy dens.
Yeah, let's
sorry, I had to bring that up.
Let's segue to that. Todd, you are back to breaking hydrometers. What happened with the old
I broke the
Money's
easy
no
dens.
option.
and sorry.
He's an equal opportunity destroyer of hydrometers.
You know what though? I love how he threw our buddy Jonathan Marute under the bus real quick because he told me like, bro, dude, I broke the easy dens, and I was like, what is wrong with you? Hey, Jonathan broke his too, and he's probably a lot more careful than I am.
He's really careful, yeah. So
he's a pilot. He's careful.
I went online and started looking. We've already talked about this on the podcast, but I went online and started looking, and a ton of people have that complaint. So
you know why they and I'm not throwing Anton Par, whatever the company is, under the bus.
I am. I'm throwing them right under the bus.
Okay. Well, I'll hop on. I'm just saying they don't care about home brewers because the equipment they sell like every day that makes some money is tens of thousands of dollars to labs and stuff. This is like a toy thing to them basically. So they don't have to support it well because you're never going to buy another one again. I'm just saying a hypothetical. You want another one because they got you hooked. They got you in. You're real.
I'm not admitting to wanting to buy another
Oh,
one.
you liar. I can see it on your face.
Happen.
But they know you'll be back. But I'm saying like you can complain to their service all day. Like, how come working on this is almost the same price as buying a new one? And they say, what country are they from? Are they Danish? Or they're Dutch? They're Dutch, right? Aren't they from the Holland or the Netherlands? I mean,
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so they say it does not matter. You're going to buy one anyway, yeah. All right, that I don't know what the Dutch sound.
Well, they're wrong. I'm boycotting them now.
Oh, all right. You know I'm a fan of boycotts.
Oh, I know you are.
I haven't been in a Target since January of 2008, James. Now my wife spends all our money there, but they wouldn't let me return a wedding present because they didn't give us a gift receipt and wouldn't even give me store credit back then. And the lady was being a real jerk about it. And I looked at her and I said, I will never step foot in your store again. And she probably is not there anymore. I'm not saying she's dead. I'm just saying she's probably not there at Target. And she couldn't care less. But I have stuck to that boycott. I also boycotted a local restaurant for a year because their service sucked. And my wife loved that restaurant.
Another thing, I was on their site, right? And I always find it interesting. They only have 5-star reviews on there, it looks like.
That's all they publish. That's all I do.
1 4-star. So they just don't publish if somebody doesn't give it.
If Apple Podcasts had me in control, we'd only have like 9 reviews because that's the 5-star reviews we've got. Okay. Like the 1-star, which I still got to make you that shirt from Dragonfly Lady 1. Todd had said he'd wear that shirt if I put the review on it. And I made a shirt. Which, speaking of shirts, I at the beginning totally forgot. James, I just noticed you are wearing that beautiful Fox Hollow Brewing shirt from our buddy Clay. He sent them in. Do a spin for us, James. Do a spin for it. That no fooling, not sucking up to him because he sent it to us.
It's even got a pocket.
The nicest shirt we've been given from someone, and it's a home brewer. It's not like a professional brewery. Like he spent some money. I like it, and I believe he's in Kolsch Cup, so I don't know if he's buttering us up. We are sworn to impartiality, my friend. We can't give you better scores just because of the shirt, but I will be looking for your registration number and hopefully judging your beer. But no, that's a clean shirt. Anyways, back to the question though, to wrap it up before we go. So carbonation can affect it, but like you said, James, it's not a whole lot of overthinking. You can just get the bubbles off the actual hydrometer itself, and that can be accomplished by shaking it hard, like Todd said, or letting it sit for a little bit and spinning it, tapping it, and then letting it settle. Yeah, but it is to reiterate for what Jared was saying. The pressure fermenting lagers might be the only way I ever do lagers again. Because I don't have to keep my office so cold, and it seems pretty straightforward and reliable. So, Jared, thank you so much for submitting the question. A reminder, when you call, leave a voicemail to 325-305-6107, and I use it on a future episode. You get yourself a $25 gift card. But if you use that same hotline as a text, you're like, I don't like the sound of my own voice, Josh. I'm embarrassed. Whatever, that's fine. You still get yourself a $15 gift card, like our buddy Stuart from Kansas City, who texted me saying, Josh, this is Stuart from Kansas City. You like the redundancy there, Mr. Burns? Great job on the pod to all of you. It's a highlight of my Friday commute. Question, I'm getting a mill and planning on bulk buying grains. What base grains are a must-have for you all? What specialty grains would you try to always keep on hand too? Yes, I realize this all depends on what I want to brew. I want to hear the three of you talk about what you each would keep. Cheers. It is very contingent on what you want to brew, and I suspect between the three of us, the answer would vary. I think Todd might have the most complicated because Todd's never satisfied with the same 1, 2, or 3, or 5 styles. Todd, like I said, you've brewed more diversity in the last 3 months than I have in the last 3 years of personal brewing.
You mean what you're saying is I've brewed something besides a Kolsch?
Yeah, and an alt beer.
Or a pills.
Or a pills, yeah, right, exactly. So I'll keep my answer short and sweet. Of base grains, and I think Todd would agree with this. having Munton's lager malt, or if you can't get Munton's local to you, because still, unfortunately, not every homebrew shop in the country carries it. It's asinine. I don't get it. But a lager Pilsner malt, their lager malt is a Pilsner malt. So keeping that on hand for a base grain. And then for me, it would probably be a 2-row, or from Munton specifically, their Pale Planet. With between those two base grains, if I had to just pick two, he didn't say what two, or he didn't say a number, but I'm guessing, 2 is probably a good amount of base grains to store. Those would be getting me through 95% of what I'd want to brew, probably. And then for specialty grains, is Vienna and Munich, are those specialty grains or are those base grains to y'all?
You can use those as base grains.
Okay,
Yeah, you can, but a lot of people use them as specialty, so they can kind of go in either category.
Well, because those are the two.
Yeah,
those are the
versatile.
two. Those are the other two of base / specialty I keep: Munich and Vienna. And then if I had little containers, some Caravian and some Cara Munich and some Cara Pils, and then I'm good.
That's great. Yeah, you can definitely brew a Coles with that.
Brew a
All day
Kolsch,
long.
brew a Pils, brew an Alt, brew an ESB. No, I need Maris Otter. See, well, can't brew everything I want. James, what are you keeping? Like, if you're trying to appease the average man's brewing, what are base grains that you would say always have these on hand?
Oh, easy. I would do 2-row. If you can't get Muntons, I would get 2-row or Planet malt, and then Pils malt or lager malt on Muntons for my base malt. And then I personally would keep some 20L and some 60L, some Cara Pils and some Vienna malt and some Munich malt. And that should get you covered on a lot of German styles, which is all that matters to me.
and for clarification for people too, is if you're brewing, let's assume the average person brews 5 gallon. You don't have to keep like a 55. Let's say they buy a sack of all these at some point. That 20L or the crystal malts you were talking about, or the caramel malts, whichever brand, those bags, if you bought a whole sack, are going to last you a long time.
Yeah, I wouldn't get a whole sack of the specialty grains, but you're right. They will last a long time. Just keep in mind, there's most of that stuff's no more than 10% of the total grain bill or less.
Exactly.
So, especially when you're talking about the really dark malts, like the 120L or Alpha 1, 2, or 3, they're roasted, and you don't want to use a whole lot, because you talk about bittering up a beer. You'll definitely do it with some dark malt if you use too much, especially chocolate malt. So all of those are used sparingly in my book.
Yeah, and when we're talking about bulk buying too, or storing, the one, like if your recipe called for chocolate, I wouldn't blame a person for not having it on hand. You can just go to the homebrew shop and get your ounce of it or whatever.
You would need
an ounce
with chocolate malt. You wouldn't even need a half a pound to keep, or just say an even pound and keep it. You probably want to put it in a Ziploc bag and probably store it frozen.
Yeah.
Now in the darker malts, they don't seem to be as bug happy as the unroasted malts, and maybe because they're roasted and they're bitter and they don't want to eat them. But on the base malts, we had to keep them in a freezer because we weren't brewing every weekend. So a whole sack, in fact, Todd would go get us sacks of malt because he was in Austin all the time, and we would have to keep them cold and keep them sealed up, or the bugs would get to them.
And that leads me, before I throw it to you, Todd, for what you would keep. I'll put a link to my favorite container. Todd's actually given me a handful of them for chicken food, for dog food, and for brewing, taking a recipe home. Those Vittles, I think it's Vittles, not
and they're very expensive now. I don't know if you've priced them lately.
It's 60. I think it's $60 for a 60-gallon container, like the exact same kind you have.
Yeah.
I think they're $60.
I saw them in a store the other day, and they were like 80 something.
I think on Amazon. Well, so I looked right before y'all hopped on the call. I had it up on the screen. I think Amazon is like 60 something. Maybe it was 69.
Yeah, well, no, and I'm sure they're less expensive online. This was like a retail store.
Yeah,
I just walked by, and my wife was with me, and I was like, "Oh my gosh,
yeah,
wow,
yeah."
So,
They are not cheap. But my point being,
no, they're 40. They're like $50 on Amazon. Yeah,
for the 40-gallon, the 61. I do remember which is what you have. Which if you're going to store a whole sack of grain, the lowest a sack of grain is 50 pounds.
If 60,
a 60 pound
pounds instead of gallons.
Yeah,
it's definitely not 60 gallons, dude.
No, I said gallons. I meant
like an oil barrel is 55
I meant pounds.
gallons.
I meant pounds.
Oh, okay.
I meant pounds. Although we do have NSF how many pounds of grains are those NSF containers on the casters? I mean, I call them trash cans, but they're for food. What are those? 150 pound, 200 pound?
It'll hold. It's a lot. 200. It'll hold like how many bags, James? 3 or 4 bags.
The little ones with the screw-on lids?
No, the big trash can ones upstairs.
Oh yeah. I mean, at least 3 bags.
Yeah, they're
even 4
they're big.
bags.
And you're talking about the specialty grains. If anyone needs, is it?
I'll be right back.
Okay,
sorry, y'all go ahead.
Is it 20L? What is it? We have a crap ton of up there because I miss a word.
Oh, it's 20L.
It's 20L. Hey, come up with a recipe for 20L for me, could you? So I can go through all of that. Oopsie. That was
I don't know how that happened, but I mean, we had like 10 bags of 20L. I'm exaggerating, but
no, it was a lot. How did I do that, Todd? The trash can full of 20L. How did I do that?
I don't know why you did that. I was wondering the same thing every time I looked at it.
It's one of the more glaring. Hey, but it's not the worst mistake I've ever made. Can we just leave it at that? It's not the worst. It's not the most.
Thanks for bringing it up so I can think about it again.
It's not the most expensive mistake I've ever made. Anyway,
it's like when I go to the grocery store, I always grab a deal of unsalted and salted butter because I'm getting low. And the other day I looked in the freezer and I have like 6 boxes of butter.
I love it. Yo, that's a good problem to have. Listen, from one pre-diabetic to another, like I like that. But Todd,
and that's funny you say that, James, because I make my wife likes unsalted butter for baking, and I'm like,
I do too.
80% of the butter we eat is not in baking; it's on my cornbread or something. I want it salted. So now we have to keep both in stock. Are we talking about stocking butter or stocking?
Yeah. What are your choices, Todd? For how I'm going to limit you to 3 base grains and 4 specialty grains. But what are the grains? If you had to pick, you have a gun to your head. Pick your top 3 of base grains. What are you picking?
Well, I mean, it would be a lager, Maris Otter for sure, and then if I only had to pick 3, I guess I'd have to pick between either pale or what they call 2-row, which I've never liked that term because it's all 2-row, right?
Well, not all of it. I mean, there's
no, but I mean, all the base grains that we use in recipes, 90+%. I mean, they're very, very rarely do you use a 6-row.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So yeah, but a lot of people have a pale is a little bit light. So I are darker actually, right? Yeah. I mean, I use all 4 of those all the time. So I think the only one that I think you can get away fairly well with substituting would be the 2-row and the pale. So,
right. And specialty grain.
I'm not doing that. I'm not doing 4. That's ridiculous.
You're
gonna. I mean, how could you only have 4 special?
I know.
Grains?
No, that's a good. Well, that's why buying in bulk, you're going to find yourself being a mini retailer at some point if you're trying to keep up with every scenario. You're like, well, maybe I want to brew an ESB. Oh, maybe I want to brew a California Common. Or maybe
I think I could limit it to 20 if I tried really hard.
Yeah, that's what's keeping the upstairs alive. The Trub Club is what's keeping it alive, but also our brewing needs where. It's like when we're looking at, hey, what do we want to brew coming up? And it's not easy to always pick. And then looking at recipes, like you're coming up with, I'll give a spoiler. At some point in the future, Todd has been coming up with a lot of recipes and you want to test brew them. The problem with you coming up with them is you deciding the exact build because it's like, oh, I want, like the brown ale, I think that you're coming up with, or that you said you're coming up with, it's not complicated. That's not the right word, but it definitely has a lot of stuff into it, right? Where now we got to make sure. We need
not a lot.
Yeah,
really,
but it's not stuff we necessarily have ready. Where it's like, okay, we got it. Let's order a bag of this. Let's order a bag of that.
Well, the problem is, we have everything in there, but we may not have enough quantity. Yeah,
that's what I meant. That's totally what I meant. of a kit to ship out.
Well, we
So-
got enough for me to test it.
Yeah, no, we do, and you need to, because I want to put it on the calendar. I've been trying in 2024, friends, to be better at planning. Proper planning prevents piss
and I love that.
poor
And
performance.
I would like to brew more, but I can't brew every single weekend. I guess I could.
I was gonna
shouldn't
say
say I couldn't.
Bet you $5. Bet you $5 you can't.
Yeah. So
As
we
we're
gotta get. We all need to. It's hard to brew all the time, but that's all I want to do. My wife's like, "Really, you're brewing again this Saturday?"
Well, you know what you should do? Here's another plug for something I forgot at the beginning. You both should plan on the calendar. It is on the shared calendar for Friday, March 15th, 2024. That's the next Brew Day Live my pop and I are doing. Friday, March 15th at 10 a.m.
That's on my
Central.
calendar.
Yep, at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. We are going to be live streaming the March recipe kit, which I'm not giving away because it's not March yet. But because of proper planning, I already know what it is. So my pop and I will be doing it. Hopefully Todd and James can join us too. I know that is the first day of Vilver's vacation, but it's a Friday, so it shouldn't be too hectic. And then the week after that, you are going to the restaurant expo, I believe, Todd.
I am.
And
yes.
so I'm going to be up there with you, James, the following week, since Vilver's gone. And I'm told I have to learn how to make regulators and manifolds. Well, I know how to make regulators. I haven't made an air manifold in the whole 15 and a half years of working for Todd. I've made plenty of regulators. Never had to make a manifold. Isn't that incredible? I've cleaned kegs before.
You're gonna love it,
I'm going to love it. I guarantee it.
James.
Anyway.
Do you like making manifolds?
No, not particularly, but
That's all. Teach me.
But I have no problem making them.
Manifolds are an art because it's very hard to put brass into aluminum and not have it leak. There's a system
gall.
to it. Or gall. Yeah, there's a system to it.
Yeah, you are the Marco Pierre White of air manifold makers. Yeah, but
I'm
anyway.
going to go find some of those stripped air manifolds we have, James, in the back, and let him practice on some of those first before we give him
that's a great idea.
functioning. blades.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Stuart from Kansas City, thank you for submitting your question. A final reminder, when you text 325-305-6107 and I use your question on a future episode, you get yourself a $15 gift card to catconnection.com. But even better, how does it get better, Josh? Well, you call that same hotline, 325-305-6107. You leave a voicemail question preferred. I take it. We're desperate. I use it on a future episode. You get yourself a $25 gift card. Like our final question of the week, it's our buddy Chris from Michigan.
Good morning, Homebrew Happy Hour crew. This is Chris from Michigan. I'm extremely excited that you guys are bringing back Kolsch Cup 2024. I recently registered, and this will be my first competition, so I'm extremely excited to participate. Quick question for you guys is I recently bought your Quick Carb keg lid, and I had a question in regards to how long does that typically need to be hooked up for? Does it stay connected the entire time your beer is in the keg? Or would you hook it up for a few days and then switch it back over to your standard gas post? Any information or ideas would greatly be appreciated. Again, looking forward to Kolsch Cup 2024. Thanks, guys.
Cool.
Thank you for entering. It's your first competition. Let me give you a heads up. It's in the notes. If you read everything at kolschcup.com, Todd can be brutal. Don't let it hurt your feelings. But the more Kolsch Todd drinks, he just a little more blunt with like, oh, I don't like this, or oh, I really like this. So just a heads up. We do put in there, Todd can be brutal, just so you know, if this is your first competition. But, and also, we are not BJCP certified. So when you get your scorecard back and it's like, they gave me 48s and 49s, and then you submit it to the National Homebrew Competition and they're giving you 30s and 32s, those guys are jerks, okay? We are we're the fun bunch. The BJCP can suck it. No, but anyway, Todd.
Oh gosh,
Todd, you. I'm going to throw this one to you first. You're the keg man, but also you are the man behind the very popular video we did showing when we released that quick carb lid. Is it intended to be used for the duration of that batch in that vessel, or is it just intended to be using for carbonating and then taking it off, putting a standard one, and using it somewhere else?
it doesn't matter at all.
That was the shortest answer in the history of Homebrew Happy.
Either one.
No, okay. So let's say hypothetically, hey, I've because we do, you know what, on the listing, I'm pretty sure it says this. I didn't do my homework. I think it does say that one of the perks of this lid, as opposed to the old way where you would replace the entire dip tube and put the Carbstone at the bottom, the benefit of the lid version is that it is multi-use, right? Like you can use it on a bunch of kegs. You're not making one keg a quick carb keg. You're able to put it on other ones. So let's say, okay, Todd, I just did a batch, that I'm kegging and I want to carb it real quick. And then I have this other, I want to make soda after that. What would you do if anything different, if I have it on this one keg of carbonating and then I want to use it on another? Do I need to, when I open it, repurge the keg when I replace it with a new lid, or is that blanket of CO2 from the first from the quick carb lid enough to not worry about oxygenizing anything or
you probably
oxidating?
don't need to, but you could. It wouldn't hurt anything to purge it. I mean, put the lid on, put the gas back, move the gas over to the gas post from where the lid post was, and then pull up on the pressure relief valve to purge some out. You could do that. Yeah, that's no problem.
Okay. Because that's the only thing I could think of someone would ask or think of is, well, I don't want to oxidize. I said oxygenate. The oxygenate's the good part before fermentation starts. You want to oxygenate your wort. You don't want to oxidize your beer post fermentation. And you're saying you wouldn't even think about, obviously you can't take off the lid pressurized. So you take all the pressure out, remove the lid, put the new one on, put it back on gas, and you're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
Right on. I like the short and sweet.
No, you don't.
I like the short and sweet. Allow me to drag this out for another 4 minutes. I do actually. I got this question, and I'd like to put it on video form, in audio form. Someone did say, so the first part of his question, let's answer that one first before I change the question a little. How long are you leaving the gas on the carb post before you're switching it back? If you're not going to change the lid out ever, do you just leave it on the entire time you're using that keg? Or do you say, after like 3 days, it's been infused enough from that Carbstone, I'm going to put it on the normal gas post now?
I mean, there's some variation. It depends on what what pressure, what level you're trying to carbonate to. But for the most part, James, when you say it takes about a day, if you're leaving it, say at 11 psi or something,
to finish up,
yeah, with the Carbstone on there,
with the Carbstone, it does definitely shortens time. I think it's a little longer than a day if you don't do any pre-carbonation. If you set and forget it, I think one thing to think about too is every time you pull, if you get a beer, it's gonna be putting out really microscopic bubbles in the bottom. So maybe you're right. I mean, it shortens it down tremendously. I just don't know exactly how long.
Yeah, I don't. The thing is, I generally use it for carbonated water the most, and with carbonated water, it's ready by the next day.
Yes,
you can definitely taste it. If we do a full keg of RO water and it's cold and we put the Carbstone lid in and hook it all up, it's amazing. We'll start pulling off that keg whether it's carbonated or not, but it seems like every time gas is introduced by filling a pint glass, you can literally taste the difference as the day goes along. Yeah, I think you're probably right, Todd. It doesn't take long.
I mean, the reason I don't use it a lot is that when I keg a beer and I'm ready to drink it, I typically force carbonate it right then and start drinking it like 30 minutes later. Mm-hmm. And then if I've brewed multiple kegs, and let's say I have 3 kegs, a lot of times I'll just stick them in and put them on gas. I'm not even putting them on a Carbstone because they're going to sit there until I finish the other keg. So it's going to be, a month later, and it's, or I put it in my pressurized, not pressure fermenting, but my fermenter can be pressurized. So once I'm done fermenting and I'm cold crashing, I typically hook it up to CO2 and it's carbonated before I put it in a keg. So I rarely use a Carbstone to carbonate the beer, although in a lot of circumstances, it would work. It works great. I mean,
Yeah.
it really is a good way to do it. That's the way professional breweries typically, they're forced carbonating, and it's either a giant carb stone or something well, I guess that they're all very similar. They're injecting CO2.
Yeah, that CF15 you have both at the barn and in the office, y'all both used basically as a bright tank where you carb it up in there. There was one batch of James's pills 2 or 3 years ago where I think y'all drank 2/3 of it out of the. Do you remember that? Y'all drank like 2/3.
I've never done that.
I think you had enough for one keg after.
It's so strange. Every time I brew a beer, it's I only fill up 2 kegs, even though there's 17 gallons in there.
Yeah, right. What was
That's
it?
right.
Was it your California Common? We drank a lot out of the sample valve too.
Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah, we drank a lot out of the sample valve. Like, oh, that's finishing up real
the
good.
The new Pilsner's like that too, because I keep seeing how clear it is and everything.
So
it's just a bigger keg, right?
It is just a big keg. That's right. And your glycol, you're keeping it at serving temp, basically.
No, it's right now it's 30. I think it's like 34 degrees.
Oh, I didn't know y'all could get it down. Oh, see, I thought y'all had issues getting it down low. Y'all adjust. I mean, y'all
figured it out.
You figured it out. Okay. Yeah. Anyways, wrapping up Chris's question. I agree with what Todd's saying. I would love feedback, specifically if you're watching at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour. When you when you smash that like button and you hit subscribe and you comment, I've been told it helps the algorithm, but do you use a quick carb lid for beer? And if so, what is your method? Because I don't want to speak for the other two as much as I've only used it for water. And I think kombucha too, because I use it on there the entire time. I like 30 PSI on that carb stone, just constantly putting so much bite into my water or my kombucha that when I dispense it, I want it that.
Although,
that
you say that, but if you got it to 35 and then you just put a disconnect on the standard post at 35, it's not, you're not going to get any less of that bite.
Oh, okay. So it's just
when it's at 35. Yeah. And, we talk a lot on this show. We use the PSI that we've carbonated the beer to instead of volumes of carbonation.
Yeah, we do.
Because volumes of carbonation was made up just to confuse people. So, we say but the thing that's misleading about that is it does depend on the temperature, but since we always keep everything at the same temperature, it doesn't really matter to us. So 36 to 38 degrees, I would say.
Yeah, what he said. Anyway,
and then also keep in mind that a certain pressure and temperature, it'll only do so much.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good point too.
You can set and forget it, and then it'll top out at. If you go to your carbonation chart online, it'll tell you exactly where it'll settle. It'll finish out in volume.
I'll put that in the link. Todd had me add that to Homebrew Happy Hour a year or two ago. So yeah, I'll add that to the show notes as well. Chris, thank you so much for submitting the question. The last reminder, when you call 325-305-6107 and leave a desperately coveted voicemail question for me to use, and then I use it on a future episode, you get yourself a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. Gentlemen, that is all I have for this week. I greatly appreciate your time. I'm going to be up there at headquarters next week. We actually have a very busy schedule coming up of projects and video shooting and new stuff. It's exciting. I can't wait to talk more about it on future episodes. But my point being, I will see y'all soon.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com and click on that submit a question link at the top of the page. Or even better, call in at 325-305-6107. Leave us a voicemail and get yourself a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. Thank you to our show sponsors like Muntons Malt Premium Grains for a better brew day. If you aren't already brewing with Muntons, give them a try by joining our Trub Club at a recipe receiving level. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a pack of Imperial yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join the Trub Club. Again, go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of Todd Burns, James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.